this computer. Assalamu alaikum and a very good evening to everyone. And once again, apologies for that technical glitch. Thank you for joining us. Please note that this session is being recorded for members who are not here tonight. I'm Coach Anjana Lumba, Education and Programming Chair of ICF Oman Chapter, and your host for today's session on coaching and adult development. A quick note on housekeeping, please keep your mics on mute during the session. Please post your queries on the chat to be answered by Dr. Mohammed later. And by attending this session till the end, you get 1.5 CCEs, that is 1 CCE core competency and 0.5 CCE for resource development. We would also like to request you to please fill in a very short feedback form at the end of the session. It is now time for me to introduce our speaker, Dr. Mohammed Raei. An ICF certified coach, he bridges academic scholarship with practical leadership development. As an independent scholar, dissertation coach, developmental editor, executive coach, and organizational consultant. He hosts a podcast and has co-edited 2 anthologies. He currently serves as a guest co-editor for a journal of management, spirituality, and religion special issue on love in relationship. Dr. Raei has presented at leading professional organizations, including the International Leadership Association, International Coaching Federation, Pacific Northwest Organization Development Network, and Puget Sound Project Management Institute. His work explores the intersection of leadership theory, spiritual wisdom, and practical application, helping executives and organizations navigate complexity through authentic, purpose-driven leadership approaches. Thank you, Dr. Raei, for being here. Once again, very warm welcome to you and everyone who is here. Over to you, Dr. Raei.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum and good evening. A couple of corrections. One is the special issue is on love and leadership, not on love and relationships.
What did I say?
So I'm not an expert on relationships. I'm an expert on love and leadership. So that's one correction, and I actually I have another book that's coming out at the end of the year. So I'm an editor of 3 academic anthologies, but I didn't include that. But just quickly in the chat, just type in the chat yes, no if you've heard of adult development. We have 1 yes so far and 4 no's. Any others? We have 12 participants, so there should be a few more. No. Okay. One person said, I'm studying in an MBA program. My knowledge is that usually it's not covered in MBAs. So Maxime, do they cover adult development by any chance? Okay. So overall, this is a new topic to everyone. Just a quick overview. I'm going to start sharing the screen. And let's start with...
Dobrze już.
Okay. From the beginning. Can you see the presentation? Can you see it now? Okay, perfect. So adult development has been around since, I would say, the late 70s. And it's not a new topic, but in the field of leadership and coaching, it started taking off around, let's say, 2005, thereabout. And in the last 7 to 10 years, there are trainings and people who are doing stuff around adult development and coaching. So it has taken off really in both the leadership field, leadership development, and in the coaching field. My own knowledge, I contributed to the first anthology on leadership and adult development, which is the book on the right. And then my own two books that I edited, both of them involve a lot of stuff around adult development. And I still continue to do some work in that area. So at least from the academic side, I know a lot of stuff. I've received a lot of training. One of the things that I want to say is that you might take this session and think, oh, I know adult development. No, I spent 3 years studying adult development, and then after that, some more time and some more time. So minimally, you'll need to study adult development for 6 months to a year, concentrated to develop expertise. There is this quote that I really like from Carol Dweck. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Carol Dweck, but she wrote, "Scholars are deeply gratified when their ideas catch on, and they are even more gratified when their ideas make a difference, improving motivation, innovation, productivity, for example. But popularity has a price. People sometimes distort ideas and therefore fail to reap their benefits. And this is why I caution you around adult development, just to say, oh, I read this book, oh, I can use adult development. It takes a lot of time, and there are many people who misuse these terms, even the ones who have PhDs. They just take one course or spend a semester around this topic. So this is not an easy topic. And I'll explain in a while why it's not easy, because it's not just intellectual. There are many types of interventions that people do, whether practitioners, consultants, etc. And there are the personal, interpersonal interventions. These include coaching, mentoring, conversations. There are the group team. There's now team coaching. Of course, there's group facilitation. And there are, of course, system-wide organizational. And the adult development lens has implications for all of these three: the personal, interpersonal, the group team, and the system-wide, because even organizations as a whole, or even societies, operate from a certain level of adult development. So one of the key things that I really love to emphasize is that the success of an intervention depends on the inner condition of the intervener. And in the field of OD, there's even the field of the coaching, the use of self as an instrument. So as much as we develop ourselves, that plays into the success of the intervention. So a bit about the history. I mentioned that adult development really took off in the late 70s, early 80s. So what did people think before in the 60s or in the 50s? People thought that the old view was that once you hit 25, you stop developing, or 18. Okay, we're all adults. That's what people say. Oh, he's 40, he's an adult. He's 50, he's an adult. That's the old view. The new paradigm that took off, which is on the right-hand side, was that we can develop through several stages over our lifetime. Of course, some people stay in the earlier stages, so not everybody gets to the same level of development. And I'll talk about this later. With each successive level, or the next level, comes more capacity. So you can do more with each level of development. So what does adult development entail? What is it that we are talking about? Well, we're talking about vertical development, not horizontal development. So adding new skills is not adult development. Adding more capacities, that's what we're talking about. We're going a step higher. It's a leap in our abilities. So it's not like, oh, I learned Microsoft Word. That's not what we're talking about when we talk about development. Uh, I can handle more complexity. That's a capacity. That's what we're talking about. Uh, uh, I can see the world different. That's a higher capacity. It's not just a skill that you can get through training. Um, and then within adult development, we're talking about stages, not phases. So the difference between a phase is that we can say somebody in their 20s or their 30s and their 40s, each one is a phase. The stages in adult development are about specific capacities that are weakly tied with the age of the person. And as I mentioned, some people never get to the later stages. In fact, most people don't get to the later stages. And even when we say a certain person is at a certain change of their adult development, we're talking about their center of gravity, the average. If they're tired, they could be reverting to a lower level or an earlier stage. And then they could be operating in their personal life at one stage and then in their work life at a different stage. So when we talk about somebody's stage, just an average, what generally they operate from, not always. Even if I'm tired, I'll be cranky, not be at my best self. Um, and then when I discuss the different stages of adult development, each person will understand the subsequent stages from their own level. So it's only when they get to the next stage that they're going to understand it in an embodied way. So when I talk about, just as an example, there's a stage called teal. If I talk about the characteristics of a teal person, the person who is at the green stage, which is prior to the teal, will understand teal in a very different way than somebody who is already at the teal stage. For somebody at the teal stage, it's embodied. So when they get to the teal stage, they're going to say, oh, this is what the teal stage is about. But when they are at the earlier stage of green, they're going to understand it within their own capacities, within their own understanding. Um, and one of the key things is that, generally speaking, stages cannot be skipped. You can't jump from 1 to 3. You have to go from stage 1 to stage 2, then to stage 3. Another thing, transcend and include. What does that mean? It means that each subsequent stage includes all the capacities from the previous stage and then transcends them. So let's say you can do addition at the earlier stage, then you can only add 2 numbers. At the subsequent stage, you can add 3 numbers. So adding 3 numbers includes already 2 numbers, but goes beyond it to adding 3 numbers. This is what transcend and include. Punctuated equilibrium. If we go back to this one here. Okay, so if you look at the right-hand side, you see a plateau and then the going up in the level, and then you see another plateau. This is called a punctuated equilibrium. So the equilibrium is lasting for some time, and then depending on the conditions, your environment, your life, then you might go up. But then there's that period of instability where the flow is diagonal. So that's what's meant by a punctuated equilibrium. Um, So at the same time, I don't want to make it sound like it's static. People have usually experienced two steps forward, one step backwards. It doesn't stabilize over time. It takes years before one is stabilized from one stage to the next. So it's a lengthy process. It's not something where, okay, I'm now stage 4. It doesn't happen that way. There are times when you go back to stage 3, uh, there is sliding back even within the same day. Of course, higher is not necessarily better. If your life doesn't demand the highest stages, then you don't need the higher stages. But generally speaking, our life in the modern world demand higher levels of complexity. Um, it sounds simple, but can take many years. So even with developmental coaching, with coaching, yes, you can accelerate, but still takes time. And there are many stage-based models. Each practitioner has their own preference. The one we're going to use in this one is called uh, the spiral dynamics integral. So some of these are Keegan's model of mental complexity. Keegan is at Harvard. I trained with his institution. There's Torbert's action logics model. There is an article in Harvard Business Review, came out, I think, 2005, 2007. It's one of the top articles in Harvard Business Review. It's called The 7 Transformations of Leadership. And it's an easy read. You can find it online for free. And it's one of the easiest ways to introduce somebody to adult development. Again, it's called The 7 Transformations of Leadership. Cook-Reuter's ego development model, stages model, model of hierarchical complexity, Fisher's dynamic skills theory, and the one I mentioned, which is the spiral dynamics. Each of these models looks at a slightly different facet of development. So if you think about development as a mountain, each one is looking at a slightly different side. And usually practitioners love to use one or two. They're kind of tribal about it. They're like, oh, I use this one. I use all of them, depending on the context. But usually, once you have had many years of experience with these models, that's when you can start using whatever model you please. Ken Wilber is one of the developers of this integral model. He is considered the Einstein of consciousness. So if you've not heard of his work has been used also in coaching in something called integral coaching. But I won't delve into it right now. We can talk about it in some other session. So the model is called spiral dynamics integral. And why is it a spiral? Because it's not linear, and the good thing about the model is it shows at the bottom the earlier stages of development, and they're kind of contracted, versus at the top it's much wider. And there's this truth to development that it opened things up for the person. Generally speaking, this is a generalization, but generally a person at the later stages of development has a much wider view and much wider abilities than somebody at the earlier stages. And why I chose it is because it has the different colors. Some of the stage models use 1, 2, 3, 5, 15, whatever. And it's easier for people to remember. Green is this, blue is this, amber is this. So the colors resonate with people more. Of course, they can misuse it by saying, oh, you're green, you're stupid. So that's not the intention of the model, and that's a misuse of the model. So I want to start with the earliest stage of the model. Before that, so one way to think about development is about movement. And There is, depending on the model, of integrated all the different models together, the different movements. So you can view it, you might resonate with some of these movements more than others. So the first movement is from pre-modern, what you find in tribal societies in the Amazon jungle, to modern, which is what we see in some societies in the West, to postmodern, also societies in the West, and then later the movement to postmodern, which is only emerging in the last 15 years, mainly in the West, unfortunately. Um, and then you see the movement in the person from the self-centric to the group-centric to the world-centric. So instead of the person being self-centered, they're more concerned about not just what happens to their group or nation, but to the whole world. Um, they are moving from concrete, everything is concrete, black and white, to subtle uh, uh, shades of gray, and to being meta aware of these restrictions in our way of thinking. Um, Subject to object. So this is, let me explain it this way. When you don't see something, you're subjected to it. When you move it from subject to object, then you can look at the object and see it yourself. So when we think of our own paradigms, mental models, worldviews, we usually don't see them as, we have them as in the background, and we don't see them in the foreground. So what happens with adult development is a lot of these mental models, they move from the foreground to from the background to the foreground. Then you can see them, examine them, and then change them. It's a movement from having no opinion to having an opinion, then not being attached to an opinion. Um, from being less open to more open. And this is what I talked about, the spiral. Um, if you're familiar with the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, there is a movement from, oh, I need food and shelter and all of these things, to how do I self-actualize? Why am I here on earth? Uh, from being undifferentiated to differentiated to integrated. So what does this mean? If you're familiar with things like Jungian shadow work or IFS, for example, IFS has these different parts within our own cycle. So initially, these are not differentiated. Then, using whatever methodology you want, you start seeing more parts of yourself. And that is the differentiation part. But then the trick is not just differentiating, but integrated them all together so that you are more whole. So a adult development is a movement towards wholeness. You move from low tolerance for ambiguity to high tolerance for ambiguity. And this has both implications for us as coaches and also for our clients. For us, and I'll talk about this later, and also for our clients, which is instead of needing script model to follow like the grow model, we lose the script, we can improvise. We move from being reactive to proactive, reflective, and responsive. If we are in power, we move from unilateral power, power over, to mutual power, power with. We move from not in control of things to being in control of our lives. And this is big in coaching, having people realize what can they control. But eventually, with the later stages of adult development, there is the loss of the need to control. In a manner of speaking, going with the flow of life, surrendering to whatever. Moving, I mentioned this earlier, moving from self-centered to world-centered, moving from immediate concern to long-term strategic. And then a movement from an unformed ego So one of the biggest problems people have is that going back to that undifferentiated metaphor, that the ego has not fully developed yet. So you can't transcend an ego before you have fully formed the ego. So you need to form the ego, which is the intermediate stage of development, and then get to a reformed ego or transcend the ego. It's a process of initially building up, which is forming the ego, and then a shedding process, which is losing everything that's not essential, being authentic, connecting with the higher self, depending if you're comfortable with that terminology. And in coaching, we often use metaphors. You use the metaphor as a container initially, then as a toolkit, but then you use the metaphors as a playground. You kind of just play with the metaphors. It comes with more skill, but also with more development. You move from the destination focus to focus on the journey and the process. So instead of, oh, I want my coachee to achieve this goal, the coachee moves from needing to achieve the goal to the focus on the journey. The goal is part of the journey, but it's not the end of the journey. And then a movement from ignorance to wisdom. I'll take a few questions now, if that's okay. Any questions? Go ahead.
End thing on the bottom. Sorry about that. I was just really curious when you were talking about the stages and how when you go through the stages there can be regression. Because I'm thinking of if you have a traumatic life event or something like that, that you might go back in the stages. But I'm wondering how culture plays into this, particularly just thinking about culture in Oman or the greater Arab area.
Yes. So I'll talk about two things. Trauma generally can stun one's development. So if the person wants to move for various reasons, neurological, the trauma creates a circuit in the brain that keeps moving. It's a vicious cycle and you can't move forward. So dealing with trauma, and in the last 15 years, there's been a lot of trauma research. I don't know if you've heard of the book, The Body Keeps the Score, by Vander Kolk. He talks about a lot of the different methods used to deal with trauma, but even with using IFS, that helps a lot with trauma. So dealing with trauma definitely can help the person move forward. So that's one part. The culture. So like traditional cultures tend to be on the pre-modern side, and even adult development looks different within the culture, the different cultures. So collectivist cultures, the way the adults move in the stages looks a bit different than Western culture. So you have to have also cultural fluency within with your coachees to figure out, okay, these models were created for the West. How can I adapt them to work with people in the Middle East or wherever where the culture is collectivist, more collectivist, not individualist. And the challenges for a person in a Western culture might be different than the challenges in Middle Eastern culture. So does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Would you stay within the same model, addressing the culture thing, or would you move between models because of the different culture?
Not really. If you're within the culture, like you have to read how the models doesn't, I mean, at some point, once you're experienced, the model doesn't really matter. It's just that your understanding of the culture and how things will show up in that culture. So having the cultural fluency. Okay, so let's move forward. Okay, we're good with time. So going back to the color. The first color is magenta. And the reason why I have it on the left, if you told me the color magenta, I wouldn't know which one it is. So just for people to relate to the color. This is the earliest stage of in spiral, and it emerged 50,000 years ago. It focuses on preserving sacred places, objects, rituals. This is what humanity looked like 50,000 years ago. And it just focusing on bonding together to endure and find safety. You know, the environment 50,000 years ago was not safe. There were the saber-toothed tiger. Everything was dangerous. So you needed to bond together as a small group of humans. You lived in an enchanted, magical village, minus the danger from the saber-toothed tiger. Life was not very demanding. It probably looks somewhat like the hunter-gatherers we have today. You sought harmony with nature's power. There was probably a lot of, it's called magic animistic, because you saw magic everywhere. If the wind blew, it was magical, it was a spirit, that sort of thing. And the individual was subordinated to the group. Generally speaking, we don't have a lot of magenta these days. Maybe a few tribes in the Amazon or uncontacted tribes, but basically this was humanity 50,000 years ago. Then the red tribal, we still have that. Everybody knows the color red, so I'm not going to include it here. It's egocentric. It's the person is the center. The tribe is the center. Feudalism. So we've had feudalism up until the 16th century in the West. In Japan until the 18th century. Even in the Middle East, we've had some feudalism up until the 18th century. Avoid shame, defend reputation, be respected. So we still have these red tribal characteristics in modern times. Gratify impulses and sense immediately. So there is no delayed gratification. Five, remorsely and without guilt to break constraints. So a lot of the, if you know, even I guess even in World War I, there's a bit of red tribal behavior in terms of attacking other countries, other tribes, whatever it is. Don't worry about consequences because that may not come. So the focus is very much on the present. You're not acting strategically. Impulsive and ruthless. So you see this with Genghis Khan, but you know, even to some degree with Trump. So we still have these things around. But the question is, you know, is that the center of gravity for society or the person? And then it's my way or your way. There's no other way. Moving to amber, which is absolutistic, which also means black or white. There's no middle ground. A majority, around 50% probably, of Western populations and large, even when I say Western populations, it's different in Eastern Europe than say Canada or Scandinavia, and in other regions it's probably way less, or way more actually. It's psychologically dependent. What does that mean? It means that my opinion of myself is dependent on others' opinion of me, and I don't have an opinion of my own. So I'm going to play a short video after this slide, and you're going to see what I'm talking about. It's conformist. We conform to what society tells us. It's the company man in the US, the person who follows the party, whatever, in whatever country, like in the US, for example. Formal roles, avoids conflict, people pleaser. So this part about the people pleaser, there's a lot of the time in psychology, there is a confusion between somebody might have developmental issues where they are still, say, at the amber stage, and the psychologist would diagnose them as codependent. But the codependence, the people pleaser, comes from their level of development. So 95% of all psychology education in the US does not know anything about adult development. And they confuse situations that are developmental with mental illnesses in the DSM. It's ethnocentric. In the US, there's nationalism, America only. In a lot of countries, it's the same, even in parts of Europe. So that's coming from the amber stage. And it's patriotism, nationalism, that's rooted in amber consciousness. Us versus them thinking, if you remember George W. Bush before the Iraq War or during the Iraq War, that's classical amber thinking. So let me play this. I don't know if you're gonna be able to hear the video. This is from the Black Adder. Just a sec.
Unable to hear.
You have to change when you share your screen to video optimized.
Just a second.
So you have to stop sharing and share it again.
Okay.
Like in Zoom. It's a setting in Zoom.
Okay, how do I do that? Just a second.
You just go to share, like the green button. Yeah, I hope can explain because I have it here in German.
Okay, hold on.
And then there should be like an option to click for optimize for videos, because then we won't be able to see any cameras anymore, and the audio will also be shared.
Advanced sharing, just a second. Stop share, and then let's see, advanced sharing. It's not showing. I'm gonna skip the video. It's fine. Just a second. Okay. Okay. I'm gonna skip the video. It's unfortunate. Okay. So it's unfortunate we couldn't see it. The video is not good, but let's move on. So the next one after, can you see the screen again? The sharing? Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. So the next one after amber is orange, and that's around 35% of the Western population. They call it formal operational. It's rational, objective. That's where the paradigm of science, objectivism comes from. It's rooted in that orange stage. It's the modernist view of the capitalist economy. Business is operating mainly from orange. Self-authorship, which means that I have my own opinion. I'm not relying on society just for whatever it tells me to do, as opposed with the previous stage, which was I relied on society to figure out what I needed to do. Goal outcome oriented, gender driving, that's where a lot of the managers need to be. and people in their life. In our modern life, we need to be minimally at the orange level. It's psychologically independent. I have my own opinion of myself. I don't let anybody tell me what to do. And then I'm capable of problem solving. So anybody who's an engineer, a manager, whatever, doctor, they are, at least in their work, they're operating within that orange stage. And then, as I mentioned, capitalism, materialism, consumerism is part of that orange stage. The next one is the green, which is the pluralistic mind, relativism. That's a smaller percentage of the Western population, between 15 and 25% of Western populations, depending on the country. It means that ontologically you're postmodern. So postmodernism means that, there is no ultimate truth. There is no meta-narrative like communism or whatever, that there are many worldviews and we have to accept all of them. There's no nothing, no such thing as everything is equally important. Values community, consensus, egalitarianism, or it could be argued that it's overvaluing these things. Psychologically interdependent. So there is I'm not just every man for themselves, like in the earlier stages, or there is a relationship with community. I have responsibilities toward other people, but I'm also psychologically independent. Flexible identity, multi-frame, can integrate to some degree wider perspectives. So it can accept not just my way or the highway. I can accept your perspective, Lisa's perspective. Can hold contradiction to some degree, has some level of comfort with paradox, and it can start doing some problem fighting. So it's not just solving problem, it's formulating the problem. And when I talk about that, I'm talking in the context of society. And it's world-centric. It's not just my nation state. It's not my tribe. It's the UN, for example. That's a world-centric or linked with green consciousness. Then the final two stages that I'm going to talk about are the teal and the turquoise. And teal is the color on the left. The turquoise is on the right, and some people get them confused, so that's why I put them there. They are called second tier because they are a step up in their capabilities. They're probably an order of magnitude more significant than the earlier stages, and they recognize the limitations of the previous stages. So there's turquoise, which is the higher vision logic, teal, lower vision logic. This is just less than 1% of Western populations, and even less in other areas. These are the kind of the leading thinkers in the world. Integration and wholeness, that's the goal of these levels or stages, to be more accurate. And if you remember, the orange is all about rationality. The green is a bit more about feeling. The second tier stages, they balance both rationality and feeling. And they are a quantum leap in complexity of thinking or acting. So one of the things that I wanted to bring up, people think, oh, okay, development is great. So why is it happening? But the average person actually would rather stay in their level of development or stage of development than develop, even when it's clear that it's not working. So this quote shows what I mean. It says that the initial impulse of those who discover the limits of their beliefs, assumptions, or worldview is to resist that discovery. people work to change the shape of the world itself by selectively ignoring data, eliciting particular responses, or making creative interpretations of events so that the belief, assumptions, or worldview remains true. So, for example, the flat earthers in the US, nothing will convince them, even, going to space will not convince them that the earth is round. And they'll create all manner of evidence and arguments about why it's not true. So people will resist any change to their worldview. And even at the individual level, it's the same story. And the other reason why people resist this change, going to the next developmental change, is that because it's very disorienting. So the next quote shows why it's disorienting. It says, it's as if the world was flat, and now, peering off the edge, I see that it's round. And I fear that if I step into the round part, I'll look back and the flat part I know so well will be round too. And I'm afraid that if I turn around, and I'll find that there's nothing left that I understand the way I used to know. It just changes everything. Nothing remains the same, and I'll be at the beginning of my knowing. So, in my opinion, this really captures why people might resist. It's very disorienting. It's our worldviews about ourselves or the world provide us with a great amount of certainty, and without them, when they are challenged, then it creates this shaky ground that everyone is not comfortable with. So this is why people might resist moving to these later adult changes. I had a client and I made a suggestion to them, and they were very resistant to it. And I think one of the reasons is that it challenged their own worldview of themselves. So they were afraid to go to that subsequent stage of development. So bringing this to coaching, how many of you are familiar with Jenny Rogers' work? If you can type in the chat. Anyway, Jenny Rogers is one of the big coaching names in the UK, and she wrote several books about the topic. I think she's about to retire now. And she created these 4 stages of learning how to coach. The first stage is absolute beginner. I equate that with magenta. Then stage 2, apprenticeship. You've internalized coaching principles and your confidence grows. I've equated this with amber. This is also where the focus of the ICF core competencies are. Oh, you have to do it by the book. Oh, you didn't say this is an ethical whatever at the beginning of your, and then you get downgraded with your recording. So this is where a lot of the coaching competencies are based. And then the stage 3 is the learner psychologist. You have realized that coaching is complex because people are complex, and it involves more green than orange. And then at the highest stage is mastery, and that involves finding you're working comfortably with wider range of clients. Well, you now see that there are few neat solutions. You can tolerate ambiguity, and you can take a systemic approach looking at wider issues of family, organizations, and community that will be affecting the client. So this is where systemic coaching is. In the last few years, there's been a lot of momentum around systemic coaching. And this level, stage 4 of mastery, is closer to teal, to turquoise. So let's take around just 7 minutes where people go into, can you do the small groups?
Yes, for sure.
Okay, yeah. Given the number, I think 3 people each for 8 minutes. And the discussion question is, I'm going to keep these on the screen. Where do you see most of your clients are?
I think I will have to ask reclaim being a host. Sorry, I'll have to make you co-host to be able to do that. 1 second. Okay, we have 3 people. Okay, it's done.
So now they're in the group.
How many minutes do you want it? 7?
7, yeah.
Okay. I'll just open it for them.
It says I need to join. Okay, I'll stay here. Okay. So.
I think you need to maybe share the questions again.
On the screen.
Please.
Okay, share. So the question is, where do they see most of the clients are?
Majda is not joined. Let's check. Nothing in the chat. Majda, you are not joining the breakout room.
So do you usually do these late evenings always, or?
The sessions?
Yes.
Sometimes a little earlier, like 6:30, but usually around 7, because most of the offices finish about 5:30. People get home by 6. Some of the offices, actually, the ones that work split shifts, finish at 7.
Wow.
Yeah, they work
And
from 8 to 1, and then they take a break in the middle for the afternoon, and then they start again from 4 to 7.
do you usually do in person, or is it always online?
Well, some of the sessions are in person, and but majority of them are online. Usually we do some events in person. We just celebrated the 10th anniversary for ICF Oman chapter, and we went out for a bowling event, 10
Oh,
pin.
nice.
Before that, there was Ramadan, so we went out for an iftar event.
Yes.
So yeah, some community outreach work that is always going to schools and colleges. So
Educating them about coaching. Yeah,
yeah,
it's
we
hard.
invite parents and the teachers and the students. So we do separate sessions for
Very
them.
nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
How many years have you been with ICF Oman?
So as a coach or as
No,
on
with the program.
board, with the board, just
Yes.
January this year, the board.
Nice. Yeah, yeah. I attended during the coaching week, and that's why I reached
Yes.
out.
Yeah, I saw,
you, you're
recalled you.
doing you're doing a very good job. I used to be program director also for the Pacific Northwest OT network, so it was my job to get speakers, and it's a fun job. And sometimes it depends. I got to meet the top people in my field, so it was nice. Okay. People are back. So my question is, you discussed, where do you find most of your clients in terms of the stages that I talked about? So if you can share in this chat, where did you find them in terms of their stage of adult development? Amber, orange, amber, amber. So amber, orange, that's kind of the consensus, which makes sense based on the global statistics around where most people are. And it's usually, I will mention this later, one sign that somebody has a mismatch between their level of adult development and the situation they're in, whether at work or uh, in their own personal relationships, is that they find themselves in over their heads. So is that something you have experienced with your clients, that you find them in over their heads? Yes, please type yes in the chat, or no, also in the chat. That would be helpful.
Can you maybe just say like what you mean with in over their heads? I'm sorry. I don't
Okay.
understand.
So it means that they feel that, like, overwhelmed, they can't cope. It's beyond their capacities. And I'm not talking about, too much overload. I mean, psychologically, it's too much. It's not just the number of hours. It's that they're asked to do something that's beyond their capacity. For example, public speaking, that's challenging for a lot of people, or deal with conflict. And so one of the comments was, yes, when we go to other countries or change of culture, that's definitely we're in over our heads. It takes a long time to figure out the cultural rules. So I agree that's the area where people find themselves in over their heads. So I'm just gonna quickly go through the last few slides. Um, and okay. So uh, for okay, so how do you know you as a practitioner your own developmental stage? One of the things is you are a self-starter. I can handle most of my work or life challenges, which is the opposite of in over our heads. So if you're not in over your heads, it means that the level of complexity or adult development stage matches the challenges that you have. So you're probably green, orange, or later stages, but you're not amber or orange. I don't care about other people's opinions. We talked about this, how you're psychologically independent instead of dependent. When coaching, I can improvise, which means that Jenny Rogers' third and fourth level of coaching. You're not stuck with the, oh, I need to follow the model. I'm comfortable with ambiguity and certainty. That means you're probably at a later stage of adult development. I'm comfortable with conflict. When I say conflict, it's both internal conflict and internal conflict. So internal conflict, it means you have these conflicting parts and you're not able to mediate between them. So you feel very conflicted and it gets in the way of further action. There's this optimal zone between your challenge level and your mental complexity. And the middle zone, the Goldilocks, is that growth zone. And if you go over it, where the challenge is higher than your level of complexity, it means that you're in over your head. So you can ask a few questions to help people move to the next stage of their development. So, you know, when somebody says, oh, my parents think this or my parents think that, or what do you think? My boss thinks this. What do you think? My parents want me to do this. My boss wants me to do this. My wife wants me to do this. What do you want? So having the client articulate their own wants and needs and thinking. Perspective taking. What is another way of looking at this? Taking the perspective of others, saying, what do others want? Instead of just what your needs are, you also want to be interdependent and take other people's perspectives. This is moving into green. This is also a very important question. If XYZ is difficult, what was particularly difficult about clarifying this might help people move forward with their own development. The client can go only so far as you have gone within yourself. You're not going to go there they're not going to go there if you want to go there yourself. So you can't help the client move to the next stage of their development without you having been there. You're just like, if you try to do that, you're just the blind leading the blind. That's why you need to work on yourself. That comes with a lot of things. I'm going to mention a few things that you can use. How to accelerate your own adult development. Developmental coaching, which uses coaching based on these developmental theories. So you can get coaching yourself. You can get supervision with a developmentally informed supervisor. A lot of the time, the goal of supervision is to develop you as a coach. So supervision is really important. I know it's expensive, but if you can afford it, definitely try to get some supervision. It's not required yet by ICF. It's required by other coaching bodies. Take stage-based developmental assessment. So once you know where you are, you know where you can develop further. If you don't know where you are, you just if you don't have a compass, then you'll go anywhere without knowing where you're going. There's something called the immunity to change intervention. I've done a few workshops on this for ICF in the US, and I really recommend it. There's something called ripple loop learning. I want to talk about it because we're running short on time. There is experiential stretch. So one of the comments that somebody made was live in another culture. Yes, you're in over your head, but it stretches you in a way that helps with your development because you realize your mental models around how the world revolves are not absolute. That's not the world. How, it might be one way in your country, and then you move to another country and you see the difference and you realize, oh, that's just my country. It's different somewhere else. Stretch assignments at work, action learning, tackling real problems in teams, structured reflection. I'm not going to talk about the next one. In terms of methodologies, this is inner work, CBT, deal with trauma. I mentioned trauma earlier, shadow work, psycho-spiritual practice, immersive retreats, meditation, lots of different things, IFS work. The list goes on. So there are many things. This is just a taster. So it's time for questions. We have literally 8 minutes. So I'm going to take questions. And I know I tried to cover a lot of grounds. This should have been 3 hours, but I know it's later in the evening. So, it's just a taster. It's like once you become curious about adult development, there are many resources out there. You can send me an email. I'll send you a list of resources. Sabina, go ahead.
I was just applauding. I was not. I'm full of impulses and I need to digest, but it was great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Questions? Clear as mud, as they say.
Either that or we're all in the magenta or amber phase. No, it was clear. Yeah, you've been very kind, Coach Mohammed, to say 3 hours. The stuff you shared with us, I'm like, this is a 3-month course straight away.
I sent a note. Can he comment on it in the message if he can comment on it?
Yes, I agree. You have to take your.
Just elaborate on this.
Yes. So if you don't understand, you can't understand teal or turquoise unless you're in turquoise. Your understanding of turquoise or teal, if you or green, is distorted. You're not getting it. So you can't take your client to teal or turquoise unless you're already there. You cannot tell them. Okay, coaching is generally asking questions, but sometimes it helps to share an anecdote from your own experience. But if you're not already there, you can't share that anecdote from your own experience. You can't say, oh, I struggled with this, and this is, I used to care about other people's opinions, and this is what happened. Then now I don't care about other people's opinions. You can't give personal examples from your own experience. And sometimes that's what the client needs instead of just asking questions. Yeah, of course, we want to be 90% of the time asking questions, but also you will not be able to read the client's stage of development unless you're one step ahead. Is that clear?
Well, it's clear, but we're trying actually to avoid to direct the client to our
Yes,
solution,
so
to our solution.
let me add that I don't use developmental coaching with everybody. I
Okay.
use it with client that's ready for it. Not every client is wanting to develop. People resist development. So some clients are eager to develop. You have to be able to read their interest and ability. Some clients just are goal oriented. They want transactional coaching. So it's not something you use with every client. Oh, I want my client to go to green or go to turquoise. That's not something you can do in 8 sessions. And if you're doing corporate coaching, there is the goal of the organization that the client has agreed on, and you have to align with that goal. So it's not with every client that you use developmental coaching, but you're using it in the back of your mind as a background theory to assess what interventions you can use. So you might, if you understand the theory correctly, you know that this intervention is not suitable for somebody who's amber. It's asking too much of them. Or if they're in over their heads, I have to dial back a bit so that they're within that Goldilocks stage. So it's a model that's informing your practice, but you're not using it explicitly. Maybe in only 10% of the cases can you say, hey, look at this, and this is magenta or whatever. I used it once with one client where I sent them the article, The 7 Transformations of Leadership, and I asked them, where do you see yourself? Then 6 weeks later, I asked them, where do you see yourself now? So they had a description each stage, and it was helpful for them. But I don't use it with every client. Don't get me wrong. Like once you get 6 months of training or a year of training, maybe then, but even then, you can't use it with every client. Just the theory that's in the back of your mind.
Okay, very clear. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Welcome.
This time I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
So my question is, you said you have to already have been in the stage to be able to coach the client and like to be already in teal or turquoise to bring someone to develop someone towards that direction. But what about the other way around? So imagine having a client in magenta and red, and maybe I never went through magenta and red because I was born and raised in an academic family.
Yes.
And because I just read like it was not an article, like a comment on someone that we have an issue here in Germany. So I'm from Germany. That quite often we have like all those like therapists, but also coaches that have this academic background, so they don't have the understanding for people in other,
Culture.
yeah, not only cultures, but also in other social stages. It can be German
Yes.
culture, but with no education or low education background. And what about that? So the other way around. Can you really coach if you have never been to that stage too?
Can you say the question differently?
Yes. So can you coach someone in magenta, in red, in amber, like truly coach them without ever truly being there yourself because you grew up in a privileged environment?
Well, with the successive stages of development, you have more ability to have perspective taking. So you might have not lived in poverty yourself, but you can, to some degree, empathize with them. Just like with empathizing with people with trauma, you might not have had trauma yourself, empathizing with rape victims or war victims. You can't be in the same situation with every client that they've been through. I had one client, she had trauma, like domestic abuse, ADHD, many issues. I coached her, I helped her to some degree, but like I didn't experience any of these. If we say, okay, well, we can't coach somebody unless we've had the same experience as them, then we limit ourselves. Of course, sometimes it's outside our own capacity, so we have to choose ourselves. But so that's my take on it. I mean, you can select your clients. Everybody can say, I prefer clients who are, more intellectually oriented. But if somebody's not intellectually oriented, I'm still going to coach them. I just have to approach them from a non-intellectual point of view, in a way that resonates with them. So something that comes with development is being able to reach people where they're at.
Yeah. I think what's important, like also to be like humble, even if you see yourself like further develop, like in the spiral dynamic approach, but still to be aware like where your limitations are.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I need to emphasize this even more,
Yes.
because maybe I did, some people like, oh, I'm teal or whatever, I'm better than you. That's what I said. Higher
Yeah.
is not necessarily better. And, and not in every aspect of your life, you're teal. So just because somebody might be teal or turquoise doesn't mean that they can be condescending towards other people.
Yeah.
Just like I have a PhD, I don't like tell people, hey, I have a PhD, I'm Dr. Raei. Just like I'm a normal human being. So even with more adult development, you become more human, not less human.
Thank you.
Okay, well. Perfect. So
Thank you very much. Thank you. That was really, I think, as you said, it sparked a curiosity in me. So I'm definitely going to be reading a lot on that. Thank you so much.
So I'm gonna be sending a bunch of resources, and then you can share them with the members.
Sure.
So if I don't send it by tomorrow, just shoot me an email. Simple articles, the Harvard Business Review article, all of these, and you can share them.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you for your time. Thank you for being here. Before we say goodnight, we have two things to do. One is to come on camera if possible and smile for our PR and marketing chair.
Okay, I have to take this off and make sure you post it on LinkedIn. So
You will, for sure. So if you can, let us know, Fatima, whenever you're ready. And
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. So count of three.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3. One more.
Okay.
1, 2, 3.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you so much. And last but not the least, I would like to invite ICF Oman Chapter President Carolyn Phillips to give us a vote of thanks.
That sounds so formal, but truly from our hearts, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Mohammed Raei. I mean, it was truly an enlightening session. I have to admit, hearing you unpack adult development, I couldn't help but thinking, hey, a lot of adults I know, including myself, might actually still be babies. But it has sparked a lot of curiosity in me. It has opened up a lot of new ways of looking at what I do, both personally as well as professionally. So truly, truly grateful for your time and grateful for your inputs. More importantly, truly grateful for our members and non-members who have showed up here today. Thank you so much for your support. We are a small chapter, we are a growing chapter, but we rely on each one of you to be here, to be present, and to enjoy this generosity that comes from our speakers. So thank you everyone for being here today. Anjana, thank you for all the trouble that you take in scheduling the event in our sessions. Truly another beautiful session for ICF Oman chapter. And Fatma, thank you again for giving visibility to all the efforts and all the activity that we do. Once again, everyone, thank you so much for supporting us. And again, thank you, Dr. Mohammed Raei, for your generous time and expertise.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Masalama.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Good night.
Good night. Bye.
Masalama. Thank you all.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Masalama.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye-bye.